Quick test. Right now, in your head, say the word banana. Did you hear it? A little voice saying the word in your own head? Most people just did. Here's the part that surprises almost everyone the first time they hear it. A huge number of people didn't hear anything at all. No voice, no words, nothing. And they're not broken. They're just thinking in a completely different format than you are. For most people, that inner voice is doing a lot of quiet work all day long. Rehearsing what you're about to say before a hard conversation. Narrating your own actions. Okay, keys, wallet, phone, talking yourself through a tough decision, weighing the options out loud, just inside your own skull. It feels so automatic that most people assume it's just what thinking is. The actual mechanical process of having a thought, except it isn't. Researchers have a real term for living without an inner monologue, anendophasia. People with this don't narrate their day in words at all. Ask them what they're thinking, and they're not suppressing an answer or being cagey about it. There's genuinely no sentence to report, just a thought, arriving fully formed, without ever being spoken internally first. So how do you think at all without words doing the thinking for you? This is where it gets genuinely interesting. Recent brain research has found real evidence that language and logical reasoning actually run on separate systems in the brain, separate circuits. Which means, in theory, you could damage or lose the language part completely and still be able to reason, plan, and solve problems. Some patients with severe language impairment from stroke, people who've lost significant speech ability, have still been able to solve logic puzzles and complex reasoning tasks just fine. The talking and the thinking were never actually the same machine. They just usually run side by side, so it feels like one continuous process. People without an inner voice often describe their thinking as more visual, or more conceptual ideas arriving as a kind of instant understanding, sometimes almost image-based, rather than a sentence forming word by word. Ask one of them how they decided what to eat for lunch, and they might genuinely say, "I just knew," not evasively, but because there was no internal narration to actually report back to you. The decision happened. It just didn't happen in language. And this spectrum runs the other direction too. Some people report an inner voice so constant and vivid, it's almost like a non-stop audio track playing all day, every action narrated, every decision debated out loud internally, sometimes even in multiple competing voices weighing in on the same choice. Same basic brain function, wildly different intensity depending entirely on the person. There's no single correct amount of inner narration. Just a genuinely wide, mostly invisible range that nobody really talks about, because you can't actually see inside someone else's head to notice the difference. This actually explains a strange common conflict between people who think they're just communicating badly. Someone with a strong inner voice might process a decision by narrating through every option out loud, and get frustrated by someone who processes silently and just arrives at an answer, no explanation attached. Someone thinking without words might feel put on the spot when asked to talk through their reasoning, because there was no internal talking involved in the first place, just translating a wordless conclusion into language after the fact, on demand. Here's the actual twist. There isn't a correct way for a human brain to think. Language, for most people, is a tool layered on top of thinking, helpful for communicating it, useful for slowing it down enough to double-check it, but not actually the thing doing the thinking underneath. Some brains just use that tool constantly, others barely use it at all and think in something closer to raw concept, image, or instinct instead. Neither one is thinking more or less. They're just running on a completely different internal format quietly for their entire life with genuinely no way to know unless someone happens to ask.